Hey, and we are back with another episode of Befriend Your Mind. If you're new to this podcast, hi, my name is Kirti. Thanks for joining in. Let's dive into this week's episode as we explore another fresh diversity of thought. This month's guest is Dean, a soul that has always intrigued me, especially with his unique approach to being with life's ups and downs. I always end up having interesting conversations with him, and I really wanted to share one with you. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you, Dean, for coming on to my podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I've been asking for you to come on for a while. And our conversations always begin with your fabulous tattoos when I meet you.
I've turned into that man with the tattoos.
No.
I never thought I'd turn into that man. It's funny because I always used to frown upon people with tattoos.
Really?
Yeah, probably because of my sort of conservative upbringing. So, oh gosh, look at that person. He's covered. Oh, it looks so horrible. Oh, it's like, what do people think? And now look at me. So
Well-
that's the first lesson. Never judge anyone because you might end up in that place.
In that place. But I wanted to ask you because I actually find it very tasteful on you, to be honest. And so I like it also because you've always shared that there's always a story behind your tattoo, each of them. So which is the one that is the most heartfelt and describes you?
Oh, probably the first one,
Yes.
which I got long before I started getting heavily tattooed. So it was just a small round tattoo here on my shoulder.
Okay.
And it was a gift by someone who I met. It was a sort of small romance. And during the romance, they said to me, here's a voucher. I know you've been talking about it. Go to this well-known tattoo artist in the center of Athens and get the design done.
So why does that still mean so much to you till today?
Well, what I got done was a symbol that was quite like this very provocative, something that, can I say what it was? I mean, it's not.
Yeah, of course.
It's the head of Medusa, which is the
Okay.
Versace symbol that Gianni Versace used as his motif. And because back then I was heavily into fashion and very much into that very sort of outrageous, sexy, ostentatious look. So I thought, and you know, being Greek, I grew up with all these mythological things in my brain. So I thought this, you know, I really want this symbol on my body. You know, the symbol of that female beast that turned men into stone. Because anyone who looked into Medusa's eyes would turn into stone.
Oh, wow. Okay.
From her, she was turned into this horrible gargoyle by Zeus. No, not by Zeus, by Zeus's wife.
Okay.
That's the story.
Oh, well, I did not know the story, but now that I do
Medusa
know the
was a
story.
beautiful, let's say, one of Zeus's entourage of young women, and there was an affair, and then Zeus's wife denounced her and turned her into this horrible gargoyle where she could have no man ever in her life. Any man that she lusted over would turn into stone just by looking into her eyes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So she could never have another man again in her life.
But then how does that relate to you?
Oh,
To
well, I mean,
introducing
the
you?
story was very intriguing, but then the symbol also was, you know, that ancient Greek with the key and the face with the serpents in the hair. So that was the first thing. I fainted, by the way, when I got that tattoo.
Did you?
Yeah, I fainted, blacked out.
Did it hurt?
I mean, yeah, my pain threshold was absolute zero back then.
Now it must be fabulous.
Now it's a thrill.
Oh, is it? Do you keep updating it though? Your tattoos by
Constantly
any chance?
now.
Oh, we're gonna get to that one. But I picked up on something you said while you were speaking that you were into fashion, and I'm going to talk to you about the fame. You used to be quite a blogger, from my understanding.
Yeah. It started, well, I was in fashion college, so I was already sort of in that crowd in the middle 90s when London was starting to become the hot spot. McQueen, Galliano, Stella McCartney, you know, I went to school with those people.
Yeah. Oh, you did you?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was already in that sort of smooching with the in crowd. Then I started, because I had a very, back then I had a very androgynous look. I had grown my hair really long. I was this very skinny waif. I dressed up quite, I wanted attention. So,
Okay.
so people noticed me, I don't know, for the wrong or right reasons, but I was very, I stood out in the crowd. So I started doing some modeling, a little bit of catwalk. So that's when it started.
And then you started blogging your process, right?
Then through the modeling, I fell into a different world. And that's when I started blogging my experiences in that world.
Okay.
And this is before, this is just at the beginning of the internet. Let's remind people, this was like late 90s.
So this was before the internet. Where was it being published?
So this was like at the beginning. So
Okay.
so just before, and then right at the sort of the beginning, when people had their emails and started, searching things online, reading things online.
Okay.
That's when I...
So it must have grown quite big at the time, the blog.
Yeah, it did, because that was the only sort of source, the only way people could, find you.
So did you blog about your emotions? Did you blog about your experiences? What did you really blog
I blogged about my everyday experiences, my travels, my life, the world that I was in, photography, film, public appearances.
And did you ever feel was that an avenue to be yourself, or was it an avenue of putting up like how they would do today? It's all about the brand. Why were you blogging?
I was blogging because I thrived the attention
Okay.
at that point in my life. I really wanted people to see me and be interested in me, and that feedback, that I could see every day who was reading it, how many people were reading it. Back then you could get all the analytics, which country you were most popular in, how your popularity was growing. I had all that statistics. So in many ways, it was like before Instagram, before you had the followers and all that networking now. Back then, it was you could see all the statistics through Google blogging. And
so you did this for a while.
I did it for a long time, yeah. As it grew. At one point, I had 1,100,000 people stopping in every day on the blog.
And so, did you get addicted to it?
Oh, absolutely.
And what made you get away from it?
Oh, well, that's... So it went on for a long time. It stopped for a bit, then I had a little bit of a resurgence in my career, so it kind of blew up again. But then the internet started to change, and the way people interacting with the blog started to change.
Mm-hmm.
People became more vocal. I started getting a lot of nastiness, trolling, negative sort of nasty comments. Back then, that didn't exist, but slowly I could see that the way people interacted was different.
How did that make you feel? I mean, it was fairly new, and okay, now we have a lot of knowledge about this trolling and everything, but back then you were dealing with fame because you were going through a stage of that, and then you had a different fame which was quite negative or quite attacking, personal attacking.
Yeah, so
how did you deal
I
with
don't
that?
want to dive deep into what I was doing in my life, but there was one event that I was appearing at in San Francisco.
Okay.
And at one point I was doing a signing for a product or promoting something. And at one point my agent said, "We've got 200 people waiting in a line to see you. And you need to go, we need to go in 15 minutes." So I spoke to as many people as I could. And back then, people would come to you. This was face-to-face now. We're talking, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you. I've been following you ever since. I'm a huge fan. You're my idol. can you please sign this? There was never any nastiness. It was all pleasant. It was a pleasure to meet the fans. And then I remember after 20 minutes, the agent says, we've got to go now. I said, well, what about these people that are waiting? We have to go. So I remember them taking me away from the desk. There was 3 agents around me pulling me away, and I could see all these people starting to follow us through the crowd. At that moment, I almost felt like, God, what's going on here? What? Not like a, hey, all these people are following me. I must be so great and special. But just this feeling of this anxiety that I was being chased by all these people.
Mm-hmm. And so but then going back to that was one part. But then you said on the blogging also there was negative stuff.
Yeah. So then I'm just saying the face-to-face back then was a pleasure.
Yeah.
But the online, when we moved to online, that's when people can hide behind a profile or just a name or just an email or, an avatar, and they could say whatever they wanted. So it's interesting to see the switch between a face-to-face interaction with the crowd and then an online interaction.
But did that make you feel lonelier because you did not know how that was coming towards you?
Yeah, it didn't make sense to me. Why are people being so nasty? Why are people saying that when they don't even know me?
Yeah.
Or I don't even know them. So in a way, I'm thinking it doesn't really matter what people are saying because we don't know each other. They don't really know the real person. But on the other hand, as a human being, it does affect you emotionally.
Did you get to a point where you said, enough?
I got to a point where I never read the comments. I never stopped them because you had the option to choose the option no comments on the posts. Mm-hmm. But I never did that. I wanted the comments to be there.
Why?
Because I thought whether good or bad, the good comments would outweigh the bad ones. Mm-hmm. And actually a few years ago I went back to read, because I've closed the blog now, but a few years ago it was still active online. And I read some of the things, and I thought, which I'd never looked at before. And I thought, Jesus, there's some really nasty people out there.
And yeah, I can imagine. So you said and I'm very respectful because I know you've left that the yesterday in yesterday. And so what moment did you say, because your life pivoted at one point and it went to the opposite end of it. And so what was that moment where we're going into talking about next, which was you went from complete being famous to complete inwardness to monks? What was that point where you pivoted your entire life?
I mean, it didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual progression because I couldn't imagine doing it overnight because it would be like telling a drug addict to just a heavily addicted addict to just go cold turkey. I couldn't have done it because I was still thriving on the attention and the popularity. So, but then I started to realize that this is not what life is really about. This is not the real me. This is not... there must be something better out there. This can't be the only thing that I'm feeding off. So, slowly I started cutting things out, dropping out of things, and then that's when the social media got stopped as well. Because the social media became an addiction too.
Yeah, I can imagine. So was there a point where you said, okay, now I'm starting to get off there? Was there somebody who told you that? Or was there a moment where you woke up and you said, now I have to start reducing this?
It was the gradual feeling of releasing it all and actually feeling much at ease with myself. Not having to feed off it. I guess, you're wearing like all these heavy clothes and slowly you're taking each layer off and you start to feel like this, the ease on your shoulders and your back, it's starting to feel more comfortable and you can sleep better at night. That's how it was. So slowly, each layer came off until it was all gone. I was completely naked, standing there in my underwear.
So you didn't resent it at any point, the fame? Did you ever
Oh
resent
no,
it?
I've never resented anything I've done in my life.
Oh, that's beautiful.
You can't. Everything you do in your life is there for a reason. It happens for a reason, and it guides you and it creates your path. You can't resent it. I mean, I resent not talking to my dad for 20 years, but look, I'm back together with him now. I'm speaking to him. So it's all good.
So what led you then? So knowing that you were decreasing it, you went on a monastic path.
Yes, well, for me personally, it almost became like the exact opposite of what I was. So from white, I went, like yin yang, back all the way to black. So, I'm almost like I'm hiding now. I'm a recluse from that person that, used to thrive on the attention. Now I'm the exact opposite. I couldn't give a damn if anyone didn't look at me. I love that idea of I can walk down the street and I don't have to worry about what people are thinking, what their opinions of me, how I look, what are my actions.
So most people would do therapy because I think we live in a very therapy world.
I probably would have needed therapy 100 times over with the things I've been through.
Well, that's why I'm asking you. So, but you chose a life. I understand this life a little bit because you went to live in a monastery.
I spent some time in a monastery, yeah.
So why did you? Okay, first, why did you choose that? Why? What was that said? Okay, I want to do it that way, as opposed to I need therapy.
I mean, I never looked for therapy. I never sort of went down that road because I never fell into depression. I never allowed myself to go down that hole. Because once you're down that hole of depression, it's really difficult to come up. I know this from other people. So I never allowed myself to go down that road. It's almost like the monastic side, the sort of spiritual, religious side of it is where you find peace within yourself through a higher power. Now, I come from a religious background, but I don't practice a religious existence. Do I believe in God? That's another
Conversation,
issue,
yeah.
But I believe in our inner strength and voice, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
Maybe, that's our God and how we cultivate it.
That's interesting because you're saying about the inner voice, and I remember we had touched upon this before. So I'm going to just, recap it. There's that inner voice that I feel personally that there are different inner voices inside of you. There's the one that says, "Come on, we love the fame." Then there's the inner voice going, "Oh no, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing that." There's like the angel, the devil, and the one that's like, "Well, shall we think about this? What do you think about it?" So discerning that, how did you know which is that inner voice to listen to?
Well, I don't know if I have different inner voices. For me, it's my conscience that's telling me what is really right and what is really wrong for me. Mm-hmm. So I through all these different experiences, I've come to a point where even before I do something, my conscience is already telling me, perhaps you shouldn't go down that road, perhaps you shouldn't do that, perhaps you should think about it first. Mm-hmm. And I do think a lot. I'm an overthinker.
Are you?
Yes, I'm constantly thinking about situations and moments and people and things I said and things I did, and I'm really, really overthinking things.
Are you overthinking it in consideration towards the other person?
The person, my society, the people around me, my work environment, myself, at peace with myself, when I'm lying in bed. It's my whole existence. I'm thinking about it.
I want to ask you about your dad, because I know that was a big thing. You said there was a point you didn't speak to him. You come from a very, like you said, it was a religious background, a different background from Greece. It's Greece, right? So when you transitioned you went from fame, you went from living a monastic, what were your realizations that brought you to have different relationship with your father, for example?
Well, with my dad, it was, I realized that family is important. Family comes first. My parents are my, when they ask people, oh, who's your idol? Who do you worship? Who do you admire? And they say, oh, this footballer or this film star or this celebrity. No, my parents are my idols. That's what I always thought. They have their faults. They're not perfect. But they've brought me up in this world. Who else do you look up to if it's not your parents? Yes, so we all make mistakes. And my dad made mistakes. I resented him for it. And I didn't speak to him for 20 years. But then, I think back and I think the love that he showed me, the hard work that he put in, the sacrifices they made for me. Plus, I'm the younger one, so I should be smarter than them. I have to make the first step to, rekindle this relationship with my dad, which I did, and it worked.
So how did being in a monastic environment support you to get to that point? What did you do during that time to get you to see the different side of it? Because you're like saying, I overthink, but you're always thinking for the benefit of others. How did that time change you from the inside? What did you do?
I mean, I didn't spend a long time in the monastery, but it was enough to make me realize that I'm not the most important thing in the world. There are other things more important than me, myself. To find peace within my mind and my soul. And then through that, start fixing all these little things. So it's really sort of, a cleanse in my being. Concentrate on one thing. And then through that, you start discovering.
So when you...
And realizing things. Because, we're quite confused in today's society. There's a lot of confusion there. We're not quite sure. Is it this? Is it that? How am I really feeling? Why are things affecting me? It's quite a confused society.
Do you find that more with a particular gender, or is this with everyone?
No, I think it's across the board.
Yeah.
But then, each gender has its issues.
Yes, they do. And I find, like, as I said, it's interesting because when I speak to you, you didn't take the road that everybody tells you you're supposed to take, go seek therapy. You said, okay, I went for a deep cleanse. Then you started, at the sounds of it, healing your relationships that mattered to you. First of all, with your family. And your partner as well. Did you have a partner at the time?
Yes. My relationship with my partner has also had its ups and downs. And it's almost like the relationship with my partner has been the barometer of my sort of well-being. So it's gone up and down. And now it's at a very, very steady, healthy, dare I say, perfect place.
That's a lovely place to be. Do you, there's always this argument when I sit amongst, my female environment, they always say, yeah, men don't talk about their emotions. And then men go, no, that's not true, actually, we do. And so share that with me. How do I, sometimes I feel we do speak about our emotions, but just in a different way. When men don't, today being this month that there's like a extra focus on men's health, and there's always that men don't talk scenario. I really appreciate your sharing your story about it. What could you say, okay, this is where it matters, because it seems to always lie in the relationships that we have with others, our mental health. And you're saying it's been a barometer. So what makes that the success to that barometer?
I've reached a point where I can openly speak to my partner about anything, just like they can with me. So if there's something not right, if there's something not feeling good, whether it's physical, mental, in society, we talk about it straight away. We bring it up. It's all about communication. The communication outlet needs to be open constantly. Don't shut it off. Don't put the phone down. Keep it on speakerphone. Anything you want to say down that speaker, say it. Say it out loud. Don't keep it inside you. I've kept things inside me for a long time, and it was burning up inside me. Once I let it out, that was it. That was the release.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it has to be to the right person, directed to the right person. Now, this is the thing. If you direct it to a therapist or to a doctor or a governmental body or an agency, they don't necessarily care about you as an individual.
That makes a difference, doesn't it?
But if you direct it to someone who does really care about you, like a family member, a very close soulmate, companion, it feels different.
Mm-hmm.
And the feedback that you get is different.
Do you feel that the reason that you were able to do that had also to do with your culture? Being raised in an environment of family?
Well, I always think of my family and culture as the yellers, because there was always shouting at each other. That's all I remember from a young child. Is just screaming and shouting at home. They never sat and spoke like civilized people. They would shout at each other across the table, across the room, across the garden. So we're very verbal.
Mm-hmm.
Generally the Greeks, but I don't know. Especially my family, they yelled at each other.
But isn't that taking out, say, when you take it out into your family, still a certain verbalizing going on? You're not going to, at least I know whenever I tell my sisters off, because in Asian culture or in my household, we can be like, put our foot down and our voice goes up.
Okay.
But we verbalize it as well and take it out of our system.
But doesn't that feel good?
Oh, it feels fabulous.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say no to it. But I'm on the same, trying not to persuade the audience, but I'm on the same line of that you have to empty yourself on the inside to be able to channel your relationships.
Yeah.
So I'm very much on that game with you. It's just that it seems like I'm always wondering if that's a cultural thing, why we are the way we are now. I don't know.
It is a cultural thing and also a socioeconomic thing as well. My family was very working class, successful, but working class.
Okay.
So it was all right for us to shout, to stand in the garden and shout, because our neighbors knew where we came from. But the Anglophile, what would you call them, Anglo-Saxon community that was around, they were much quieter. They didn't express themselves so much. They kept themselves inside, and you could see more tension there. And they kind of looked over the fence at us and thought, with kind of like, I wish we were more like them, but they couldn't be.
Well, this is why I'm saying, so that's why I'm saying when it comes to mental health, and I was thinking about this before we were going to talk, I was like, there is a cultural difference, and it does make a difference from where you're raised and how you speak about it, because we frown upon being angry. But sometimes I'm like, well, anger has its purpose, and that's what you're sharing now here.
Actually, if you look at suicide rates, for example, in the let's take the Japanese culture, where suicide rates among men is extremely high.
Yeah.
But also you can see them as a culture, they're completely non-expressive. They don't show their emotions at all. It's all kept inside. And if you compare them to a Mediterranean culture, the Greeks, the Italians, the Spanish, suicide levels are much lower within the same male group.
Yeah. And that's got to do a lot with expressing and being in a relationship. Now, I find that very interesting. So when you look back on your life, so far, because I know there's so much coming as well, but
I'll be 52 in a few months, which shocks a lot of people.
Why?
Because I think I don't know if it's through my lifestyle, my mental well-being. I look after, physically I look after myself. So people are always shocked when I say to them I'm 52. They don't see it. They see a much younger person.
Yeah, I would say so too. But then looks are always one thing and age is another. And wisdom is another thing as well.
Yes.
But I feel that you've also lived your life and not allowed yourself to regret it. And I think does that contribute with it?
Yes, that's really true. I've done a lot of things in my life where that would be frowned upon by many people. But personally, I've never regretted anything I've done.
Did you always find that you realized something after each of those?
Yeah, of course. Not only do I realize it, but when I look back, I can see that actually all those moments were building blocks to build that strong foundation we were talking about.
So
Remember the strong pillars, the foundations of our lives?
I want you to remind the audience what it is. I know, but the audience doesn't know. What would be your pillars?
We're talking about a strong base to
Yes.
ourselves where even if an earthquake hit us, we would shake a little bit, but we wouldn't collapse or fall over.
Yeah.
We'd still be standing afterwards. And, you know, those pillars, there might be a few that are, you know, common amongst everyone, but maybe each person might have an individual pillar that, you know, represents
What are
them.
yours?
Mine are my belief in myself and my abilities, my family, the strong family bonds, the strong companionship I have with my partner. Well, that's a good beginning. That
I
keeps...
think that, yeah, I'm going to nudge you because I think there's something you don't see. You work in this building I'm living in.
Yes.
And I find that if you ask anybody going, who's that one person you can rely on? And they'll always say your name. Somehow or the other, your name will always come up. And I think it's one of your pillars is to be of service to others. You take service from a very calm approach that anybody who comes in, they can be angry as hell. You will just show up and they'll be very calm.
Well, I try. It's not always the case because I'm human, you know, and I do lose control a little bit on certain situations. But I try my best to you know, think that split second, think before I say it, and then I'm more confident in what I'm going to say. But you're right. I get pleasure out of helping people, pleasing people. I was thinking about it today. Today was especially an interesting day because we have a lot of foreign guests staying at the hotel who have never been to London. They feel a little lost, a little anxious to go out. And through my advice, through my help, they made it out and they came back and they said, wow, what a wonderful trip that was. I went to that place and it was so interesting. Thank you so much for your advice and help. That gives me a lot of pleasure.
Yeah. I feel sometimes, and that's what I'm also drawn to that from you because I find that...
And it's sincere. It's not,
exactly.
You know, it's coming from my heart. It's not coming from a place where, am I going to gain something out of it? No, there's no gain. It's an emotional gain.
Don't you think that's part of mental health as well? Being sincere? Being sincere to yourself, being sincere to others?
Everyone could be completely sincere with themselves and people around them.
But do you think it would make a difference in the way we are with one another today?
Of course, it would make a difference in every aspect of life. Just look at what's going on in the world today. Yeah. All the conflicts and negative things that we're talking about. We're seeing it, you know, played out. If only we were all more truthful and sincere with each other. And I'm talking about governments, people in charge, everyday human beings. We would come to a more peaceful and homogeneous, you know, sort of situation instead of conflict. I hate conflict.
But aren't conflicts
absolutely
necessary?
Hate
though?
Arguing.
But aren't they going to be part of? I always say you can have mental health without understanding how to be in conflicts and arguments. What do you think?
I have the biggest arguments you could possibly imagine with my partner where I'm sure if someone heard us outside, they'd call the police. And in 5 minutes, we're all lovey-dovey again. In 5 minutes after that huge fight.
So while you hated, isn't there some value to that?
There is, because what is an argument? It's just an emotional explosion, what they call like red mist, where you lose control of what you're saying and doing. But
what brings you back? What brings you all back to the lovey-dovey? What goes from that massive explosion?
What brings you back is you realize that maybe you're wrong. Maybe you're not right. Maybe you don't know everything. Listen to the other person, what they're saying. That's what I think. I think, hang on a second, what did I just scream about? Maybe I'm not right.
Well, I think that's a good one. So if I had to round it up, I know people say, okay, you said I'm 52, and I go, okay, wisdom with age, or is there a way you can support? A lot of, this is personal, I find that there's a struggle with genders also about redefining themselves in this modern world. What could you share for somebody who is now starting their journey, and they are going to have ups and downs? What could you share with them that they could do that would, make them different for being where they are today? No regret life.
Never think that you know everything. I've been in many points in my life where I actually thought I knew everything that there was to know. But that's not the case, because even right now I'm still learning, and I will keep learning until I die. I'll keep learning about myself and life. So never assume that you are the best at what you're doing, that you know everything. Have an open mind constantly. Listen, observe to yourself and others. That's the best advice I could give to people. I'm constantly learning from situations, people, mistakes. Constantly altering, fixing, adjusting myself.
And how about that one person who might be a little bit hooked on that social media?
Oh, gosh. The best advice I could give? Fine, you're doing it. You've done it. You've experienced it. Now it's time to slowly get rid of it.
Is it get rid of it?
Do it. Learn from it. Realize what it's all about. Because it will affect you at some point. Everyone. Because I thought, what's the best way to face things? Is just to get real with it. Face it. Face the real thing, the real issue.
I think this month being mental health, for also with the thought of, supporting, you don't just, I don't believe just supporting one gender, believing in supporting all genders.
Of course, we're all one people. I hate, putting people into groups. I believe we're all connected in many ways.
Yeah. And so I'm really hoping that today's podcast will support someone to say, hey, there's a way to work through this. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on this month's episode of Befriend Your Mind. I really hoped you enjoyed it and found it valuable and insightful into navigating relationships. Don't forget to hit follow, and if you found our discussion useful, be sure to share it with others. Together, let's continue to explore the rich tapestry of human connection. Stay curious and keep befriending your mind. Until the next one, take care.